So many of you. Okay, you know, good luck getting into the chairs. It's like some sort of odd production of Chicago at a high school. Cell block tango with 12-year-olds. We're going to start immediately to my right, and I apologize to go over here. We have so many Broadway stars today, you can't even see all of their faces. So please quickly, you're going to share the microphones. I want you to start right here and tell us your first and last name, the role, the show that you're best known for, and where you're from, where you were born. Don't say a hospital, give me a city. Okay, start us off.
Hi, I'm Sophia Gennusa, and I think I'm best known for Matilda and Matilda on Broadway, OBC cast.
OBC, original Broadway cast. Lingo.
And I was born in Mamaroneck, New York.
She's not like Cher. She has a last name.
Yeah.
She's big, but she's not quite. Okay, go next. We have another Ava. It's 91,000 Avas.
Hi, I'm Ava Ulloa. I'm best known for Matilda, and I was born in Manhattan.
This is exciting. They're not all Matildas. Before we even have our next speaker speak, you can guess which role she's played. Go.
Hi, my name is Heidi, and I'm best known for playing Annie and Annie the Musical on tour, and I'm born in Augusta, Georgia. Hi, my name is Taylor Richardson, and I'm best known for playing Annie and Annie on Broadway, and I was born in Richmond, Virginia. Hello. I'm Tiffany Lucas. Small Allison in Fun Home, and thank you. And I was born in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, but I grew up in New York. Hey guys, I'm Sarah Charles Lewis, and I originated the role of Winnie Foster in Tuck Everlasting, and I was born in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jake Lucas. I'm best known for playing Ralphie in A Christmas Story. And I was born in Atlanta, Georgia.
Jake, I just want to say my heart goes out to you. There's always one boy in every dance class. Jake Lucas, we're going to start with you and then come back this way. You're from a musical family. In fact, you share the stage today with Sydney, your sister.
Yes.
A question for you, which is, I know your parents met as performers. They were at an amusement park. I know you have an older brother who's a performer. Do you guys just sort of walk around the house playing the banjo? Like, what's a day? What is it like to be a Lucas, and is it actually sort of razzmatazz at home?
Well, there's definitely a lot of singing and just musicality involved, because if somebody brings up a tune, I'm automatically going to harmonize just because I cannot help myself. But I like everything.
He gets really emotional. It's a trigger.
But everything always transitions into a sort of song or some sort of musical event in our house, and it's always so fun.
Sarah Charles Lewis, next to him, I know you from Tuck Everlasting, of course, and I'm curious for people out there, raise your hand if you're not from New York City, but you came to BroadwayCon from far, far away. Welcome, you're home. You're home, you found a home. Sarah Charles Lewis, I'm curious, tell us a little bit about the journey from this kid in Atlanta, Georgia to Broadway star. How do you do that?
Well, I was cast in the world premiere of Tuck Everlasting in Atlanta, Georgia. And my brother actually was in Bull Durham at the Alliance Theater, and everyone there knew me because of my brother and my family. My dad was a lead at the Alliance Theater when he was my brother's age, and so I have a musical family as well. And I auditioned for Winnie Foster at the Alliance Theater, and I have so many stories I would love to share, but I went to the room with Kaci, and I got the part, and it was an amazing experience working with Casey Nicola, Carolee Carmelo, Andrew Keenan Bolger.
It's like, where's Waldo? If you look really closely, he's actually with us today. He's here in the room. Don't be too excited. Sarah, but a question, did you go to an open audition for that? Like, did you have an agent in Atlanta? Was it sort of like a I'm a local kid who can really sing well situation?
Well, I got the job from my brother in Atlanta, and Kaci decided to take me along to Broadway, and I was home free from then, and I was on Broadway as Winnie Foster and Tuck.
Very exciting. Cindy, I want to ask you, you are known, of course, for this song, Ring of Keys, which you sang on the top. I can't walk into like a mini mart now and hear a bell against a glass door and not go like, Cindy Lucas, it's very weird actually. For you, what is it like to be sort of known for a signature song before you can even drive? Is the first part of the second question. And then the second part of the question is, how do you keep such an intense role in a show like Fun Home, which is about such sort of adult themes? How do you keep a role like that fresh as a kid?
Well, Fun Home was actually about a real person named Allison Bechtel. It was about her life. Yeah, Allison. And you really want to do right to Allison's story, so it's not a hard job to, keep a role. You want to tell the story because most likely the story is going to save a person's life or help someone in some way. After the shows, we would go to the autograph line, and there would be people who would say, hey, your show gave me courage to come out to my family, or hey, your show, made me accept my daughter who's gay. And it's a very important show, and I'm so proud of it. Very proud.
If only this were an articulate panel. Aren't they amazing? These people are run for president when you can. Taylor Richardson, you were in Annie on Broadway, is that right? You also, I just learned, were in the most recent Annie, of course the most recent, the last Annie before the last movie, you weren't born. So what is it like to work on film for sort of an iconic project? And what's the difference between film and Broadway for something like Annie?
Well, with Broadway, everything is very in the moment. You have one chance, you're on stage, and that's it. You're there live in front of the audience. But then you get to come back and do it again the next day, which is so wonderful because you always continue to grow and learn about your character and the story. Whereas with film, you will potentially spend hours on one scene, which is, it's definitely different, but both are equally wonderful, really, and I'm so
Is there, if you were to stream or rent the most recent Annie film, is there a thing we should look for in the movie that's you?
Oh, yeah, so in the most recent Annie film...
She's like, funny you should ask, and she hits a click where we actually watch, we don't. No, keep going.
With Janae Wallace, I make a small cameo in the very beginning of the film where it looks like your typical Annie with red hair. So the people working on that film asked me to come and do that, which I was very honored to do as my very first film role. So.
Fantastic. A question from your friend Heidi, right next to you, also in Annie. So Heidi, I read that you've played Annie everywhere from Jakarta to Indonesia. You've been like Annie all over the world, and you're still this kid, and I wanted to ask you, do you ever feel like there are things that you've missed out on, little kid things, sleepovers? I'm trying to picture what it's like to be this kind of international star as a kid.
Well, definitely, since I've been traveling and all through, I missed my 6th grade year, and this year my 7th grade year, and so...
You're missing nothing. I
But I missed my first school dances and get-togethers and sleepovers, definitely, but it was definitely, I was so fortunate to be in Asia, and I didn't really care that I missed those things because I was performing Annie in Asia and all across the United States, and that was what was most important to me, and it was really amazing.
And your friends were eating pizza bagels. To your left, we have Ava Ulloa, the beginning of 2 Avas. I wanted to ask you, so you played Matilda You share the role with 3 other girls.
Yeah.
How did you become involved? How do you get to Matilda on Broadway? Do you come from a performing arts family? Like, was it part of your destiny as this Manhattan kid?
No, I don't come from a performing arts family. But coming to Matilda, it took a lot of courage, and my mom always encouraged me to just keep trying and keep auditioning for things. So I had auditioned for Matilda twice, but before I was 7 when I auditioned, and I had gotten to the first callback, and they told me I was too young and that I should come back next time. So then I did when I was 8, and I made it to the end, and I'm really fortunate for that, and I'm really happy I got to play the role of Matilda.
It feels like something we should just take a moment to mark, which is, these are very lucky kids and very talented kids, but also they've been rejected too, is that right? So they have not heard yes every single time. And in fact, I love hearing that story. Goes to an audition, hears the word no, comes back again. That's a huge theme for everyone you're going to meet here at BroadwayCon, that very rarely do you actually become this kind of overnight success. You audition and audition and hear the word no, and you don't get cast, and then you get cast later. For your friend Ava Briglia, I heard that you shared, the stage, not the role, but you shared the stage with your older sister, is that true? Could you tell us, since we have another pair of siblings on the stage, what's it like to go to work with your sibling? For me, musical theater was like an escape from my brother. So what for you, what is it like to share the stage with a sibling?
Well, I wasn't actually in the show with my sister. We were like a couple months apart. But I would go to call time with her every day, and all the kids there would treat me like I was in the show too. And when Vito would walk, my sister would walk me to call time, the kids in my run would like think that Vito was in the show too, and they would all like treat us like family, you know, like Matilda family.
Could you tell us a little bit, because I know some of the folks over at Matilda, and it's really rigorous, the type of rehearsals and even ongoing sort of dance practice that you have on a show like that. Could you to walk us through, you know, an hour in the life of a Matilda on Broadway in terms of school versus training versus voice lessons? Is it a normal life until 8 p.m. every night? Give us a day.
Well, like a normal day for me is I'll usually like get up and I'll start doing school, and I'll try to do as much as I can, and then I'll get ready. And before a show, we always come in pretty early to do like a vocal warm-up, a dance warm-up, like a breathing exercise. And the Matildas would get a lot of extra stuff when they would perform. And then we would do the show, and it would just be like pretty...
When you say you got to do school, did you have a tutor, or were you doing stuff sort of on your own, really self-motivated?
Well, I was actually really lucky because I do an online school, and it has a really flexible schedule, and it's like I do have real teachers and classmates, and there's like a real virtual classroom, but I don't actually like walk to school like a normal kid, but I do have a real schedule.
Wouldn't a lot of you out there just kill to do an online school? Like, I also would have killed to play Matilda, totally different people. Lastly, let's go to Sophia Gennusa. So Sophia, over there, trust me, she's here. You are one of the original Matildas. You shared the Tony honor for playing.
Woo! Yes, Sophia!
And so I want to ask you 2 questions. So what I know about the role of Annie and a lot of Broadway shows is that it's played by like one principal actor. The role of Billy Elliot, I know, and the role of Matilda was rotated. So I want to ask you, what was it like to share a role like Matilda with other girls your age? That's the first question.
Well, to start off, Matilda was a huge role, and I think it was really helpful to share the role with other girls because it really kept all of the kids grounded, and since there were 4 girls, you know, and so many other ensemble kids, everyone was treated equally. And that really helps to make sure that everyone gets along. And the 3 other girls that I shared the role with, Millie, Una, and Bailey, they were amazing, and I formed such amazing bonds with them. They're truly my sisters, and you know, I think it was really special to share the role with them, mostly because I could learn so much from them. And when we were all each other's standbys too. So when we would stand by for each other, since you know they played the same role as
I did, I learned a lot from them, and I was able to take the notes that they got and then apply it to myself. So I viewed it as really helpful.
Yeah, I would say I think this is like a huge takeaway for everyone out there, which is you save the drama for the stage. You save the drama. And I think I worked on Billy Elliot, and I was so nervous when I came to the show that the boys in the show would be really competitive. And actually what happened, because they shared the role, is they were very humbled by the talent of the other kid, as opposed to being the kind of sharky understudy in the wings. Very important. I want to ask a lightning round question of each of you. I'm going to open it up for a few minutes to the audience if you have any burning questions for our principal actors. And then we're going to bring a few other kids out and do a switch over, and we have sort of a fun part B to the panel. So very quick, I'm going to start with Jake, and then if anybody else wants to jump in, I'd love to hear this. The number one email I get, I wrote a book called Better Nate Than Ever about a boy who auditions for a Broadway production of E.T. the Musical. And so the number one email I get is basically a version of, do you have any advice?
Better Nate than
Like, I live in Georgia and my dream is to get to Broadway. Or I live in New York and my parents don't want me to be an actor. It's a version of advice. So I want to ask you guys, from direct from your mouths as kids who have really sort of made it, what is your one piece of advice, whether it's audition advice for people who have been teased for loving, knowing every lyric to I Dreamed a Dream. Give this audience one piece of advice they can take home with them. Let's start with Jake, and then I want to hear from the rest of you, and then we'll open it up.
Okay, so one big thing is you need to embrace yourself and your uniqueness. Because in an audition, you can be rejected or you can be accepted. That could all depend on looks, like if you look similar to the person who's playing your mother or your father or something like that. It all depends on looks, and even if you did an amazing job, you won't get the part. So you just need to embrace the fact that if you give your all and if you show your unique aspect, everyone will remember that. And what makes you unique is what makes you good.
Love that. Piece of advice. You're not blend in. I love it. Sarah Charles, you got something for us? Give us a piece of advice.
I also agree with to be yourself. Always. Don't let anyone take that away from you. Don't think that being someone else is cool. Don't try to think that being someone else is going to try to get you that part. I mean, other than actually, acting as the character you're auditioning for, that's being someone else. But be yourself when you're just talking to the director. I know I have a story. It was...
Tell us.
The second
This is a safe space. Nobody here is tweeting or taking photos, so you're totally...
do you want me to tell it?
Yeah, tell it.
There was a time, at the second callback of Tuck Everlasting of the audition at the world premiere. And I walked in, and the first thing I had to do was to sing Winnie Foster, Good Girl Winnie Foster, and I had the sides in my hand, and I was so nervous. There were so many thoughts running through my head at the moment. I'm thinking, what should I do with my things? I was panicking. So I kind of frisbeed the script across the room. And Casey, Nicola, and Chris Miller and Nathan Tyson were all in the room. And I thought I had made the biggest mistake of my life. But the bottom line, Casey told me, you were just being yourself. You were being a kid. So many directors don't want a kid that is fake. They want a kid that is real. So when they go on that stage, they are a real kid. They play that character as them, and they're a real kid. And I think I was being myself, and I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life.
Just a girl who loves frisbee and singing. I love that story. Give me two more really good pieces of advice. Somebody raise your hand who has a great piece of advice. Okay, Taylor, take it for a second. And then we gotta move along. I love you guys. We could do a podcast every week. Go ahead.
Well, when I was auditioning for Annie, it was the first thing I'd ever gone in for that was big. I went to an open call, and somehow I got called back. I didn't have any expectations that would even happen. But during the callback process, we had to sing Tomorrow, and I had never taken a vocal lesson or an acting lesson or anything before auditioning for this, and so I went in and I sang tomorrow, and I was really hard on myself, and I thought that was not good enough. All these other girls have been doing this much longer than I have, so I don't think I'm going to get it. And I was really doubting myself, and then I ended up getting called back more and more, and obviously eventually getting the part, but it just goes to show you don't have to be the perfect person in every aspect. All these little things that make you kind of going along with what was said before, they make you special in your audition, in your performance, and there's always room to learn, and that's what directors and casting directors are looking for, someone who can take this information and learn from it and grow with the characters. So
Yeah, everyone out there, remember that when you see a live show and like the leading lady's wig falls off, it's the best thing ever. It's like you get to walk away with that story. And we love nothing more than to pull for somebody who's a little bit behind. Don't forget that the theater is not about being perfect, it's about being yourself. Those are the people we root for. One more piece of yes, right here from the Tony winner.
Okay, so I think this applies to everyone, but don't be so hard on yourself. And I have to admit that's something that I have to work on. It's one of my New Year's resolutions. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes my worst audition was my second Broadway show, Dr. Zhivago, when I cracked so bad. I forgot the lyrics during the song, and I got so mad with myself, but I didn't realize that mistakes make me who I am, and they made me better, and they make me learn, because if I didn't make any mistakes, I wouldn't be where I am now. I think all of us at this table can say the same thing. Like, it makes us who we are, and I have learned to be proud of what I've done to get to where I am now. And part of that is not being so mad about the bad things that you've done, or maybe the things that you've messed up, because they help you. They really do, and the more you trust that, the more you can move on with, the things that you maybe messed up, but you can fix them. And that's basically, try not to be so hard on yourself, so.
I'm not crying, you're crying. Okay, we have time for like 2 questions, really specific questions though. Somebody has a question, I know you have a question, not a comment, question. Yes.
How did they ever set up nothing ever, whoever they were, before they got the Broadway podcast?
Great, so the question is about how do you go, it's kind of this basic question, which is how do you go from not in the process at all to up here? Who here feels like they took the biggest journey from their hometown to somewhere far, far away? Does somebody have a great story about, living far, far away? Yeah, take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I was just this small town girl from Augusta, Georgia, who liked to do community theater. And so one day my director said to my mom, hey, why don't you take your kid to New York for a Matilda audition? So I went, and I had been auditioning from then in New York for about 2 years before I landed Annie, and it was the best moment ever, and I knew that since I had worked so hard to get that role, it meant the most to me. So that was my story.
And did you sign up for did you literally Google like Augusta dancing, singing lessons? Is that how you guys found these classes in your hometowns?
Well, I was in this church choir, and my mom's friend said, hey, you should put your kid in the Augusta Players and Augusta West Dance. And so my mom was like, okay, she has a lot of energy. She'll do it, she'll go for it. And so then I just sort of fell in love with it, and then it took off from there.
Yeah, when I first got to my hometown theater, when I was 10 in Pittsburgh, I was told you had to have headshots to get into the performing troupe, and I was like, if we have to go to the doctor and he has to put a shot in my head, okay, everybody out there, everyone stand, give a huge round of applause, but don't go anywhere. Picture, they're going to go 3, 2, 1, the children of Broadway. Great, and we've got even more special guests, so stay right there. You all, led by Sophia, very safely go off stage. Love to meet you. One more huge round of applause.
I was the small girl swing in the original cast and Matilda the musical.
Love it. Eleanor?
Hi,
question, but they're wondering it, which is, what does a swing do on Broadway, other than like in Matilda, like goes over the audience and you, like what is, wow, the jokes today. What is a swing? Tell us what that is off stage. Kaci, you take it.
Okay, a swing, not an actual swing, as he said, a swing does more than one role, which is different than an understudy. It is ready to go on, and in Matilda, the swings do 4 shows a week. And two shows a week, yes. On tour they did 4. But yeah. Does that,
it's a version of kind of like an offstage understudy.
Yes.
Who at a moment's notice can step in. It's an incredibly difficult role, frequently even for adults to do. Anybody else have anything to add to that? If you had to say, yeah, swing, what's unique about this is what?
Well, like swings and understudies and alternates, if anybody gets sick, hurt, or anything, they can't do the show, and if they cover that person, their role, they go on.
I have a question for all 4 of you, and then some individual questions, and we'll open it up again. My question for all 4 of you, anybody can take it, is what's the craziest ever... Oh yeah. She moved. Did you see that? She moved. What's the craziest ever mid-show story where a show is going along and it's like, you're on, and you're never going to believe the next thing I say? Or something like that. Do you want to take the microphone? Give me a crazy swing story.
So it kind of didn't really happen mid-show. It was like a good 30 to 45 minutes before a show. So in Matilda, like towards like the middle of our run, like middle of my run, we started doing this thing called offsite standby. So where some of the swings could go home some nights, so we can actually like sleep and stuff. And I was on my way home. It was after a Wednesday matinee, and it was obviously after the show, but we were on our way home, and then 45 minutes, like, after I left, they called, they're like, hey, so, Beatrice called out, we're gonna need you to come, and I live in Queens, New York, which is like a while from the Schubert Theater, so then we're like, oh crap, we gotta go. So like, we went really fast, and we got to Schubert, like, eventually, but like, that's how it happened. But I know my friend Madeline, who was the tallest one in the original cast, she actually had to go on mid-show, and this was like her first time ever doing it, and she's like, I didn't prepare for this, I don't know what to do. She's like freaking out, getting her hair done and everything, and she's like, give me my notes, I need my notes. Because like when you're a swing, you have like a lot of notes that you need to take, because you like switch between roles so much. So like she had to read through her notes, and she's going to read.
Yeah, somebody tell us about what it's like to organize your brain. Like, it's enough to play one like role on Broadway as a kid, but somebody tell me about and be very specific about like the method you use to go on for any role at any moment. Is it about note cards? Is it something on your phone that you have? Like, how do you know if they say, hey, Gina is out, you're on? How can you just go, okay, now I'm Gina? How do you do that? Do you want to grab it?
Yeah. So what I had, we all, the swings in Matilda had binders. They gave us 3 different binders: the script, music, and dance. And so whenever I would like go, if I went on, I didn't go on mid-show, but it was like before they had told me that I was going on. Really, and like sometimes also I would switch, like let's say I was on for Amanda, they would say, oh, you're on Slavinger now. So I would have to be like, oh.
So you're getting into like character for one role, and they say, by the way, the other kid just started throwing up, so you're actually on for her.
Yeah,
that happens, right? Yeah, that happens.
So I would get out, so we have white notebooks that they would give us too, that we put all the notes in, every note section that we get. So I would look over that, and then I would also like look in my script, music, and dance for that one role, to make sure that I'm not doing the wrong dance. And right before one of my traditions also was right before I would go on for a scene or a dance number, I would think through the whole like scene or number before I went on, so that I wouldn't mess up.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like homework almost. Does somebody want to talk about, where's like the fun upside to not being on every night? Like you're backstage, you want to take it down there? So you're backstage, you're not on every night. Tell us a little bit about what a Broadway theater is really like backstage.
So in Lion King, I did 4 shows a week, And so I stay backstage, we order pizza sometimes, and watch a bunch of Netflix, and we played a lot of games, and it was just cool. Like, sometimes I didn't even feel like I was at the theater, and while the show was going on, I could leave at intermission, and it was just super chill and super fun, and yeah.
I think there's a lot of people out there who have maybe never been backstage to a Broadway theater. Tell us, is it like cushy? Is it fancy backstage? Is it central air conditioning? Very important to me for some weird reason. What does it feel like backstage?
It's pretty calm backstage. It feels like home, really. Once you get used to it, it's like the cast is like your family and the theater's like your home. You go every night.
Are there elevators? A lot of these theaters are like 4 or 5 floors.
No.
So what's that like?
They're stairs. And it was a pain. Because we were on the 4th floor. And
for you, that's like 8 floors. No offense. So you're climbing it, and then tell me how that interacts with like your school schedule. So you get to the theater. Many kids right now are like, eating dinner at home. You guys are just like pulling up to work. Have you already had a full day of school, or is there like a tutor waiting for you at school? You want to take it, Erica?
Yeah. So when I visited Matilda, it was like 5th and 6th grade. Like I switched schools like in the middle. And in the beginning, when we started having rehearsals, we had tutors. So there was like a program that worked with your school to help get your work and teach you anything. And we had like 4 or 5 tutors that like specialized in science, math, English, history, and somebody else I forgot. But and then towards the mid-run, they were like, you can sign this waiver and you don't gotta go to school. You don't have to go to tutor anymore. So like I did that, so I went to actual school. So I would go to school, and then call times around like 5, and then we do the warm-ups that they described before, and then we do a show. But like on matinee days, I got out of school early. Super fun.
Did any of you, what time are you guys going to bed after a Broadway show? I'm really curious because I was always a night owl, but are you falling asleep in the car on the way home? Who went to bed really late? Yeah, go ahead.
The earliest I would go would be like 12:30.
A.M.?
The latest I would go would be like 3 a.m.
What?
So...
Child services shows up. Push the podium over, protect her at all costs. Who else stayed up really late? Yes, go ahead.
Les Mis is like a 3-hour-long show.
So 4 floors. Let's just collect. That's 4 floors, 3 hours.
So yeah, I would go to bed the earliest 11:45. Usually I would get home at about 11:30, 11:45, and again I would have to get.
So it's a real job, right? Like it's a real job for as fun as it is. A question for each of you, and I want you to dig into your hearts because you guys specifically have really played some of the hardest roles on Broadway, which is to have this sort of humility to play a bunch of roles, right? Sometimes when you're a swing, you don't get to take the last bow. So I want to ask you guys, have any of you ever dealt with the feeling of jealousy? And if you did, how did you work through that? For people out there who maybe haven't been cast in the role they want, or a friend gets cast in a part that they want, how do you sort of work through jealousy? Somebody. Yeah.
Well, you've got to learn to love your part. I would think through how many other kids would want to be in my shoes, and how I need to know that I'm very privileged to be able to be on Broadway even. So I need to know that other kids, I'm very privileged, so I need to know that I don't need to be jealous of anyone.
Great answer. Anyone else feel like they've had to sit there and go, oh my gosh, I can play 4 roles, and I don't get the, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so since it was original cast, all the principals got to go on opening night and first preview and everything, and all this got to sit backstage, and I just had to remember that those people are my friends, and you should be very happy for them that they have this opportunity, and then you also have to realize you're gonna get to go on too. like, you're gonna go on once it's your time. I mean, I went on 5 days later, but you're gonna have your time to go on stage and perform.
And maybe like the broader lesson there is that even if you don't go on now, your turn is coming maybe later. You don't, like, I was so mad at my mom when she wouldn't let me come to New York from Pittsburgh when I was 10. I really wanted to play Gavroche. But your turn comes later. You gotta remember that. Let me open it up for a moment. We're gonna wrap up fairly shortly, but I wanna just ask, does anybody out there have a burning question, maybe not a comment, but a burning question for our esteemed panel of swings? Yes, right there.
What is your
Question for our swing, how many parts did you actually cover? In fact, actually, let's just go one down the line, starting on the end. Just tell us how many roles you actually covered at the most on any one show.
I covered one role, but I did 4 shows a night, so yeah.
So Nala, you sort of trade off.
Yeah.
I did 2 roles, but fun fact, I went on as Alice one time, even though I don't cover that role. It was a crazy thing that happened, but yeah.
So you're off stage, you contractually cover 2 parts, but something happens with the regular girl playing Alice, so it's like tonight you're Alice.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the story I heard where once in one of the runs of Les Mis, one of the Gavroches had to go on as Eponine. These things happen. / would have been my dream. Okay, speaking of, there's a class on the cloud, and I know every lyric. Brooklyn, how many roles? Sorry, go ahead. How many roles have you covered?
First I covered 3 roles because I was a little girl and I understudied because I had a Lebanese. And then I got bumped up, so then I did 2.
Erica, how many roles have you most?
I covered 2, just like Brooklyn. I covered Lavender and Amanda.
Erica, I heard a rumor that you danced backup for a fairly prominent singer. Is that true? And who is that? And what's the difference between dancing for someone like that and dancing, 8 shows a week on Broadway? Who is that singer?
Like shortly after my run with Matilda, I got to perform with Meghan Trainor for the Halo Awards in 2014. And I mean, they're both like, you use a lot of energy. I mean, for Matilda, like, I used to like watch rehearsals and take notes, but like this, I was like hands-on, I was like doing it. And you don't get to spend all of your time with the singer as like much as you really, really want to, because like, you can't. But you have like rehearsals without the person, like with the choreographer, and they do everything with you. And then when the singer, like the artist has the chance, they come and like they run rehearsal.
Really hard in the middle of the show. Kaci, you mess up in an epic way. What is your advice?
So I've had some really bad auditions where I've come back crying myself to sleep, and I said, why am I doing this? I'm not talented, and I just bashed myself, and I said, it's not worth it. And then I went on other auditions, and I really just made my way and tried the hardest that I could, because if you're rejected, you can't cry yourself to sleep. You need to try harder, because that's a lesson. You need to learn that you can do it still, but you always have to. I think that's the biggest thing people will say, but it has to come from your heart if you really, really just want to keep doing it.
Anybody else have a like, oh, that time that thing happened on stage story, Erica?
Wait, on stage or audition?
Or audition, yeah, just you get through a mistake and how you kind of deal with it and forgive yourself.
So this was like the final callback for OBC, and like 2 days before, I slipped on a dance bar and got a cut like on my foot. Like I had 6 stitches and everything during this final callback, and my mom's like, don't tell anyone. And so I was like dancing and everything, and we were doing groups, and we were in groups, like it was like the 5 like people, like it was time to show them what you got. And I did the first single slice, and the chair was all the way in the back, and I fell straight down on the floor. Like everybody was like, oh my God, is she okay? And I was like, I'm okay, but it was really embarrassing because I just off the chair and I was on the floor. It was crazy, but then I was like, girl, you're gonna be okay. They're just gonna remember you as the girl who fell off her chair, but they're always gonna remember you, so that's a good part.
You stood that up. Do any of you remember what your audition song was for like your big break? And was it from the show? Did you have to sing a song from the show? Do you remember, Brooklyn?
Well, when I went to the open call, it was, you picked like 16 bars of a song and you sang it for them. So I auditioned twice. The first time I sang Almost There from The Princess and the Frog, and the second time I sang My Favorite Things from The Sound of Music. And then as I got like further into the callbacks, they gave me like material from the show that you sang.
Yes, Kaci.
So I auditioned. I was also in Matilda. Besides singing, I played Lavender. And when I went in for my audition, I sang a song that was very loud, and I had cracked, and I was crying. And then when I got further in the callbacks, and they gave me my own song to do, and they gave When I Grew Up, and another Revolting, I think. And I sang When I Grew Up, and I also cracked, and then I sang Revolting, and I did it. And the lady said, because I said I was sick, she said, when I was sick, I wish I could sing like that. And I felt so bashed, because I felt like, wait, did she think I was lying that I was sick? Yeah.
I think people on the other side of the table are a lot nicer than you would think on Broadway,
Yes.
right? It's really not as intimidating as you think, or at least we try not to be. We have time for 2 more questions, and then we've all got to get to booths and do all these things. Yes, right there in the glasses.